Amazingly, it wasn't until the 18th century that mankind began to scientifically study the earth beneath their feet. Scientists were making discoveries into the unseen world of germs and cellular biology at the same moment they were discovering the composition of the land that was always before their eyes. However, once scientists began looking down, their discoveries would open the doors to new heights of and profits in the exploration of natural resources. Hello, I'm Warren Martin, Executive Director of the Kansas Oil Museum, and this is Direct Talk. The birth of modern-day geology radically transformed the oil industry. It made the oil industry far more productive. And there's a lesson that all of us can learn in the study of how geology impacted the oil industry. It teaches us how to be a lifelong learner, to continue to grow and develop so that we can impact the lives of people around us more effectively. In the early years of oil exploration, drillers had more in common with gamblers than they did with scientists. For the most part, it was pure luck to strike oil. Those early explorers naturally sought out any technique that would improve their chances of a strike. Consequently, there was no shortage of people, mostly charlatans, who were happy to take on the challenge. German miners in the 16th century believed that the use of a forked hazel bush twig could locate ore veins underground. This early form of witching, divining rods, would expand to locate everything from ore to water to black gold. If you wanted something with a more personal touch, you could turn to the spiritualists who received their information from the great beyond. There were also oil smellers and the more unique personalities that had their own approach. There was a man who carried a bottle of crude around his neck on a string. He claimed that when he walked over an underground oil field, he would receive a shock from the bottle. As the Industrial Revolution mechanized the world, the search for oil spawned an endless procession of machines claiming to aid in the process. These machines were dubbed doodlebugs. Many of them were remarkable machines, however, they did little to improve the likelihood of making a discovery. One such machine was built by a Pittsburgh man who claimed his giant X-ray machine, when focused on the earth, could disseminate an electrical current that would excite the molecules in the earth and render it temporarily transparent. During that moment, he could see the oil beneath the earth. Scientifically speaking, I probably don't need to tell you that all of these approaches historically proved to be no more effective than random drilling. However, it is important to note, in the early 1900s, geologists were seen as no more credible than the diviners, spiritualists, smellers, or doodlebuggers. It was in 1913 when geologist Charles N. Gould, founder of the Oklahoma Geological Survey, presented a paper to the International Geological Congress describing the correlation between geological occurrences and natural resource deposits, that the perception began to change. However, Gould's statement on the relationship was hardly earth-shaking. Rather, it was a very cautious statement. He said, "Careful studies of geological conditions have demonstrated that there is a rather definite relationship between structure of rocks and occurrence of oil and gas." While a statement barely kept people awake, it was revolutionary. Following the Congress, City Service hired Mr. Gould and Everett Carpenter to help with prospecting. Gould and Carpenter rented a spring buggy and traveled from Oklahoma to Butler County, Kansas. Over a period of time, they mapped the area around Augusta. At Gould's direction, City Service hired J. Russell Crabtree to make some engineering drawings of the data collected so the executives could better understand the findings. This was one of the first geological maps that included contouring of the landscape. At the recommendation of Gould and his team, City Service initiated the drilling of several wells in the area. Unbelievably, all but one of the wells found gas at 1,400 feet. It was an unprecedented feat for almost every well to be successful. However, the one that was dry at 1,400 feet, Gould encouraged that they drill deeper, and at 2,516 feet, the Frank Varner No. 1 struck oil. 100% success rate on drilling was beyond belief. In 1911, the city of El Dorado was in desperate need of gas. Several attempts were made to drill in the El Dorado area. However, all attempts failed to produce. Even with these failures looming in the background, City Service found new hope in the science of geology. They sent H.R. Strait and F.L. Frankenberger to the area. They staked out the location of Stapleton Number 1. On October 5, 1915, at 549 feet, the drill bit into Admire Shell and flowed 96 barrels of oil per day. They continued to drill, hitting several oil-producing formations until they reached 2,497 feet and the well flowed 110 barrels of oil per day. The first time geology was used in the discovery of oil was the beginning of the El Dorado oil boom. In the words of newspaper columnist K.V. Ken Brooks, "There was no doubt about it, city service had struck a bonanza." These discoveries not only revolutionized El Dorado and Butler County, they fundamentally changed forever the field of geology. Today, no one would even consider drilling a well without consulting a geologist. There is a lesson that we can all learn in the establishment of geology as key in the oil industry. Organizations have traditions, whether it be a club, a church, or any other nonprofit. We all have traditions. We tend to keep doing things the way we've always done them without considering why we are doing them that way. Many of the activities we engage in have no more proof of effectiveness than the charlatans, diviners, and doodlebuggers of early oil exploration. It is important we evaluate the effectiveness of the activities we engage in as to how they move us forward in our mission. We must constantly be exploring and learning. Growing in our knowledge is vital. We must dedicate ourselves to being lifelong learners. Many organizations fall by the wayside simply because they lack the knowledge and ability to evaluate their actions. Thus, they become inconsequential in the lives of others. They simply keep doing what they've always done. Museums, and all organizations, must actively work to avoid this end. To remain relevant, we must adapt. Adaptation requires evaluation of practices, understanding of mission, and continual growth in our knowledge base. The Kansas Oil Museum is dedicated to adapting to the changing needs of our community and state. We are at the forefront of changing the image of museums, much like that of geology, to become an educational institution of choice. Museums can no longer remain static collectors of things. We must adapt, and we must be dedicated to the preservation and promulgation of history by becoming an educational institution of choice in our region. And we invite you to join us in this effort.